Welcome back, everyone. So let's restart. Each group, please nominate. Well, the nominated spokes uh, persons, please come up, and you have 5 to 10 minutes to summarize what you guys have been talking about. Start with the first spoke about comms and stuff.
Sure. So, I think a very useful thing for people to do if they are the spokesperson is to try to come up with like more action items. So it is useful to bring up problems, but it's much more useful if you like come up with potential solutions to them. So I'm going to try to do that, but no promises. But I think that should be the goal for these discussion sections, not just identify problems, but try to think up solutions to them. So a lot of good discussion, some things that we talked about. We had some people from Antares and Alerce there. So one thing that they brought up was that brokers really depend on community feedback for what filters they implement in the first place. So it's really partly on us as the community to communicate with them for useful things that they should implement. Yeah. Oh, oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Oh yeah, sure. I don't know if I'm in the thing. Okay, sure. This is Jamie Burke for everyone not in the room. I'm at Alaska Race Observatory in UC Santa Barbara. Um, yeah. Okay, so yeah, brokers do rely on community feedback for things that they implement. So uh, we need to communicate better between ourselves about what is useful filters for them to implement. There was a lot of discussion about cross-matching between potential targets that the alert streams come up with and hosts that they might be associated with. We all realize that this is a really difficult problem, but it's also extremely useful. If you identify a host, there are tons of science interest from that. Like, I do supernovae, so the host type is always interesting. The distance to the host um, tells you something about the absolute magnitude, which is a useful metric for filtering things on. If it's not associated with a host, it could be an interesting extragalactic transient or a nova or an asteroid or something. So one potential thing is that if someone there was discussion about whether to implement host cross-matching at the TOM level or at the broker level. And the idea we came up with was that if someone writes one for their TOM, where they have more control over their data and what they're ingesting, a useful open source practice would be if they write something that they are confident with to like um, contribute that upstream so that it's implemented at the broker level. So do your work on your data, and then if you are confident with it, implement that upstream. There was also a discussion about the TNS, um, and the idea that the TNS was supposed to be maybe the like repository of all transients. It's the transient name server, uh, and they already have a stream of targets that they release, but it's in the form of an email. So maybe someone should work with them to turn that email stream into a more API accessible stream, like is coming from Mars or the other brokers. Because part of the problem is that uh, it would be great if all transients were reported in one place and we didn't have to check all these multiple streams. So if the TNS had a more API accessible stream, that would probably help. And then we also discussed if ZTF should implement the ability to request forced photometry on points. And we said that the PTF Marshal used to have a thing where you could like press a button to request forced photometry after you already knew something interesting was there. and then you would get an email that said, okay, this is being worked on, and you'll receive the data when we're done with that extra processing. And so ZTF can already do this at some small scales, but it would be a fantastic feature if you could request force photometry more easily. And then the last thing we discussed, which we didn't come to much solid conclusions on, but that alert streams are already really large, and so we do need to think more about ways to visualize large amounts of data, especially for, I think the science example that got brought up was variable stars. So if you want to visualize 1,000 variable starlight curves at the same time to select your best candidates. We currently don't have much tools in the Toolkit to do that. So maybe ways to add that or feedback for what would be useful for your science cases. So yeah, that's done with me.
Thanks, Jamie. Second group, please. Yeah.
Brian Miller from Gemini. I'll give what I can recall from it, and those other people that were there chime in if I missed something. I think most of the discussion was infinite. Goes on forever. Yeah. Okay. I think most of the time was spent with questions to LSST and ZTF representatives there about the alert packets, information that would be like about the variability, as I recall. And then, yeah, I think force photometry came up as well. And then at the very end, we started talking about the topics that were in the sheet, which was the main thing was about what should happen with coordinating, especially very urgent observations, conflicting observations. Who should be coordinating? Is it communities, the observatories? Probably a little bit of both. There was a request that the observatories should at least sort of publish their plans or be able to get out the information. Yes, we've got multiple observations on this target. What about data sharing? There should be maybe a flag when you submit an observation that says, yeah, this can be public right away. That was sort of what we were discussing when the time ran out. Anything else? I think that's very short. Anything else I missed? It's important.
Matthew Graham. So I think one of the only things was that there was some discussion about what the in-kind contribution for LSST would be. Melissa had a slide available in the end of her slide stack to sort of address that and clarify what some of that might be. Of interest to people who are not from the US or the Chilean astronomy.
All right, thanks a lot. I think we're done for now. Then we have a coffee break. Please be back here at 11:30.